I have been repeating this from the beginning, and haven't changed my analysis, not just because the headline sounds better now. This war has not ended yet. It has paused. There are chances it would end, because of the American establishment seems to be active rather than, Trump is getting clouded now. And that distinction is not, semantic. It's structural. Because when a war pauses without resolving its core objectives, what you are really looking at is a temporary suspension of action, while intent, capability, and mistrust all remain intact. And historically, these pauses are the most deceptive phases. On the surface, you start seeing the words like talks, mediation, de-escalation. But underneath, states are repositioning, recalculating leverages, and in some cases, preparing for the next move. So if you look at the moment and feel that everything is suddenly aligning, Pakistan active, America engaging, China supportive, regional players coming in, like Saudi, Turkey, Egypt, and which are still in Islamabad now, it should not confirm you. It should make you cautious. Because alignment in geopolitics is really this clean, unless something deeper is happening. And right now, the global layer of this conflict is where the real story is, the United States. For the first time in a long time, does not look like the power that is confidently driving the outcome. It looks like the power that is trying to manage its way out of situation that did not go according to the plan. Escalation is costly, but disengagement after escalation is even more damaging to the credibility. Because what you're seeing instead is confusion at the narrative level. Mixed messaging, contradictory signals, sudden shift between aggression and diplomacy. This is where the figure like Donald Trump becomes less of a strategist but more of a symptom. His statements appear chaotic because they are not anchored in a stable strategic position. One moment he threatens escalation, the next moment he talks about deals. Then he claims victory. That inconsistency is not just personality, it reflects a system that is struggling to define its next move. And when the system struggles like that, American system struggles like that, it does not collapse immediately, it redistributes control. That is where you're seeing the figures like J.D. Vance quietly becoming more relevant. That is the signal that the American state is trying to regain coherence behind the noise. Now bring Israel into this equation. Israel's entire strategic advantage lies in maintaining pressure, continuous escalation, continuous momentum, keeping the environment unstable enough to justify its action constantly. A pause, especially one that leads towards structured talks, this works against the logic of Israel. So even if Israel publicly aligns with the diplomatic languages, structurally it benefits from the disruption rather than moderation, which is why the possibility of sudden accident or the escalation during this pause cannot be ignored. Then comes Iran. Iran has no incentive to accept any superficial resolution. It has absorbed damage, but it has also demonstrated resilience, especially in its ability to influence key choke points like Strait of Hormuz or through Houthis, the Red Sea. And more importantly, Iran understands some things very clearly. If it allows the United States to exit this situation without the guarantees, it is only delaying the next war or the next confrontation by Donald Trump. So Iran will play hardball. It will demand either structural assurances or it will prolong the uncertainty as long as it favors him. And it does favor him. Iran is favoring from this war because Iran's oil is getting attention. And this is exactly where China enters the picture. Because without China, there is no credible guarantee framework. Pakistan cannot provide it. Iran would never trust them. Neither Turkey, neither Pakistan, nor Egypt. Egypt cannot do it too. Egypt coming to Pakistan for the talks, negotiating on the basis of Iran, talking about getting a block with Pakistan, with Saudi, with Iran, and with Turkey. You think America is not involved? America is damn sure involved in this because America wants to show Israel Who the real boss is? Maybe. So, point is, even Saudi Arabia cannot provide a meaningful way, a good assurances to Israel. Only China has the combination of economic leverage, strategic patience, and growing regional influence to give Iran the kind of reassurances it would even consider taking seriously. So if these talks are real, if they are not a facade, then the real story is not Pakistan's role. The real story is China quietly anchoring a new arrangement, a new bloc around the world. And that is what makes this moment bigger than just a war. Because what you are seeing is not just de-escalation. You are seeing the early signs of shift, a world shift. A shift where American dominance is no longer absolute, where regional powers are starting to coordinate more independently, where economic and military structures are beginning to detach from the old patterns. Egypt and Iran, especially around energy, trade routes, and the petrodollar system. Now, place Pakistan inside this. Pakistan did not enter this situation out of strategic ambitions. It entered into this situation out of compulsion. When Iran is your neighbor and the region begins to destabilize, you do not get the option to remain detached. You stay close. You stay engaged, because any instability there becomes instability here. So facilitation makes sense. Remaining relevant to the process makes sense. But the way this role is being presented publicly is where the problem begins. This is deliberate blurring between the facilitation and the mediation. Pakistan is being projected as a central mediator, when in reality its role is much closer to that of a facilitator, creating channels, carrying messages, helping reduce friction. And that distinction matters because it defines expectations by the person like Donald Trump. If we are mediating, people, administration like a Donald Trump will expect things from us, which we cannot provide. So if Pakistan is seen as a facilitating, the expectations are very limited. If Pakistan is seen as mediating, the expectations become structural. And this is where the risk lies for Pakistan, especially when Trump is going around saying things like, during the negotiations, 8 ships were gone, 8 ships were given as a gift. Because if during the pause something goes wrong, if there is an escalation, if talks collapse, if accident happens, Pakistan will not be judged as a facilitator. But if all of that happened and Pakistan is called a mediator, then Pakistan will be blamed as a failed mediator. It will be accused by creating space of buying time, of being part of just miscalculation because our rulers wanted to rule more. And that is the price of visibility. Now look at the another layer, India. We remained visible. We had to pay the price if things go wrong, but we remained visible. India did not. India had the potential, the maximum potential to remain relevant in this equation because it had very good working relationship with Iran until few months ago. It had a very good global positioning when it comes to this kind of war. It had a room to maneuver. But by leaning too openly towards Israel, it reduced its flexibility and it chooses alignment over balance because of one person, Modi. And in geopolitics, when you lose balance, you lose utility. And that is why, at least for now, space is opened elsewhere. Somebody like us. But again, this does not automatically translate into gain for the Pakistan, because gaining attention is not the same as gaining position. That comes with the stability, because world will look for the stability now after America's whole facade. And this is where Pakistan's internal conditions becomes very critical. Right now, Pakistan is trying to play a role in an external strategic shift while internally operating under instability. Political processes are constrained. Institutional independence is questionable. Decision-making is centralized and often personality-driven. That is not a system that can sustain an external strategic role, such big role for long, and get something out of it, because external credibility is built on internal coherence. If you present yourself as a stable negotiating state, your internal structure has to reflect stability. Otherwise, the role remains temporary, symbolic. It generates hard lines, but not outcomes. And that is where the deeper points becomes more relevant, important. The difference between anti-state and the anti-policy. States do not weaken because people criticize them. They weaken when policies create conditions that make criticism credible. Look at the Iran itself. Internal dissatisfaction existed there. People were against Khamenei rule or the Khamenei regime, but when external pressure intensified, society did not collapse into cooperation with the external actors, because there is a difference between opposing a government or the state's policies than abandoning the state. That distinction is not understood properly here, and that misunderstanding feeds into internal instability more, and which in turn limits the external capacity. Now bring everything together. Globally, the system is shifting. America is adjusting, not dictating. China is expanding the influence quietly. Regional players are repositioning. Enough routes and economic structures are under pressure. And in the middle of this, Pakistan has found itself visible. But visibility is not power, visibility is exposure. If talks fails, Pakistan loses credibility. If talks succeed, Pakistan gains attention. But attention brings scrutiny. GSP plus status, Qasim Khan, Imran Khan. If this entire process is a bluff by America, Pakistan risks being dragged into narrative it does not control. If it is real, then Pakistan will be tested in ways it may not be internally prepared for. The energy crisis, the energy questions, everything. There is no outcome here without the cost. And that is why this is not the moment to celebrate, it is a moment to understand. Because what is unfolding is not just the slowdown of a war, it is the early phase of realignment of the world. And in moments like this, countries do not fail because they are weak. They fail because they are misunderstanding their own importance. They over-evaluate their own importance. They confuse being included without being influential. They confuse visibility with the capability. They think being present in the process means they control the process. History does not treat those mistakes kindly, because countries that drift during the structural change do not remain neutral. They either get absorbed or into the stronger frameworks, or they gradually become irrelevant again. And that is the real question in front of Pakistan right now. Not whether it is part of the conversation, but whether it is prepared for what the conversation will demand once the world on the other side of the war is no longer the same.